Have you ever, found yourself sitting there just utterly frustrated asking, why do I keep doing what I don't want to do? You know that feeling.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's like you have two brains fighting for the steering wheel. Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at an ancient text that diagnosed this exact modern frustration 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, the Apostle Paul's letters in Romans 7.
Exactly. We're using an excerpt titled, Who Will Deliver Me? Understanding the War Within to really figure out why human willpower might actually be, well, the worst weapon you can bring to this fight.
It is a bold claim, especially today. I mean, Paul is giving language to this internal struggle that echoes through, pretty much every human soul. He's defining the exact mechanics of this internal war in verses 14 through 25.
Okay, let's unpack this. Think about setting a strict habit. You decide you're going to wake up at 5 in the morning every single day to jog.
Good luck with that.
Right. The alarm goes off and you immediately hit snooze. You completely sabotage your own plan. And Paul describes this exact tension when he writes, "For I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I keep on doing."
Yeah, that's the quote.
But wait, modern psychology tells us this is just a habit loop, right? If I want to wake up early, I just need better sleep hygiene or maybe read some James Clear on atomic habits. Are you saying Paul thinks all that behavioral advice is useless here?
Well, according to the source, Paul isn't talking about a simple lack of discipline or, a bad sleep schedule. The text explicitly states this is not a weakness or a failure of will.
It's not.
No, he names it the law of sin. He frames this as an active, overriding spiritual force warring against the mind, pulling humans away from God's intentions.
Wow.
Yeah, it posits that this isn't just a bad habit. It is the baseline human condition without Christ. It's like trying to cure a software virus by wiping down your computer monitor.
Wiping down the screen. Yeah.
Exactly. You're applying a behavioral solution to a system-level problem.
So if it's a system-level problem, an inherent condition rather than just a temporary lapse in judgment, that explains why sheer human effort eventually just fails.
It always hits a wall.
Yeah, and Paul actually reaches this really desperate breaking point in the text. He cries out, "Oh, wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death?" But here's where it gets really interesting. Modern advice tells us the fix is sheer willpower, perfection, or self-discipline.
Right, but what's fascinating here is that the source firmly rejects all three. The text argues that you cannot beat a spiritual law with mere self-improvement.
You just can't do it.
No, if this law of sin is an active force, kind of like gravity, trying to defeat it with your own discipline is like flapping your arms to fly.
Right, you might jump up for a second.
Yeah, you get off the ground for a second, but the law of gravity will always ultimately pull you back down. The text makes it absolutely clear that the answer to this war is not found within ourselves.
So if willpower is useless against a spiritual law, that forces us to look entirely outside ourselves for a solution. And in the text, that breakthrough arrives with a very specific line. Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ our Lord. Looking back at Romans 7, verse 4, the excerpt says believers have died to the law so they can belong to another, specifically Jesus.
Right.
But how does that actually work mechanically? I mean, dying to the law sounds incredibly abstract.
Let's think of it like a binding legal contract.
Yeah.
Paul is saying you can't just try really hard to break the contract you have with the law of sin. The terms are ironclad.
So there's no loophole.
No loophole. The only way out of a lifelong contract like that is death. So, spiritually speaking, the believer has to die to that old system so the original contract becomes null and void.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that death frees them to sign an entirely new contract to belong to Jesus, making them fruitful.
So it's a complete transfer of ownership, not just a modification of behavior. That makes sense. Once that old contract is voided, what happens next?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, Jesus delivers humanity from that endless cycle of the flesh, empowering them to walk in the Spirit. The deliverer is simply greater and stronger than the law of sin.
So what does this all mean? Within this framework, true freedom and victory are received, right? Not earned.
Precisely. The burden shifts entirely from your performance to the deliverer's rescue.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the limits of human willpower and the text's promise of a spiritual rescue. Before we go, let's think back to that feeling of waking up and hitting snooze. Yeah, that exhausting internal tug of war. The source insists willpower and self-discipline cannot win this inner war. So next time you face that battle, how might your reaction change if you completely surrendered the illusion of self-control instead of just telling yourself to try harder?